I bought this small orangey pine bedside table at my local op shop or thrift store. So let's see what we can do to transform it. Right now I'm just showing you how I just removed all of the knobs. Thankfully they just came out with a screw. Sorry, the video camera's not quite showing you the full picture here. But then just sweep them all out. Then you just want to make sure that you clean all the cobwebs off, because you know if there's any there that will get in the paint, that's a little bit annoying. Then you want to clean it all down with a bit of a wet cloth. You can use TSP if you like, some kind of TSP solution. And then once it's all dry and cleaned off, you can sand it. So right now I'm just sanding all the little crevices, all the little creases. I'm not sanding it back to raw wood, just giving it a scuff sand. For this project, I used Fusion Mineral Paints colour Chesler, which is a gorgeous blue-green. It's like a deep sea green colour, so dark, and in some lights it looks like a deep navy midnight blue, but in other lights it looks green. I think in the video it looks a little bit more green here. But let me show you how I go about painting the top here, and then we'll speed up the process so you don't have to sit through all of the boring painting. But I like to show people how exactly I lay the paint brush at about a 45-degree angle so that you can get those nice long smooth strokes. I'm working on that front edge first. Nice long smooth strokes, and then I go to the sides and just do those edges. They were a little bit rough actually, those edges, and you can see, I don't know if you can see, there's lots of knots in this underneath the varnish of the pine. So I didn't sand back to that raw timber, otherwise those knots may bleed through if you're using a light coloured paint. In this case it's dark. That probably won't bleed through anyway because I haven't scuffed or sanded back past the varnish. So then doing those sides, you'll notice in a minute here, I'll just kind of feather those. See that? I'm just feathering those little bits of edges where it may have just kind of caught a little bit of a dribble across the top of that edge. So you don't want that drying and causing a bit of a ridge there. So then I'll go through right across the whole top now that I've got those sides done. The back just has kind of a, I don't know, like a weatherboard back finish on it. So it's not a routed edge around the back, just the front and the two sides. So once I've got that top all done, I'll do these nice long brush strokes, smoothing out all of the brush strokes. I'm using a Klingon S30 brush. It's one of my favorite small brushes that I like to use. It's a short handled brush. And again, doing the sides, just nice long sweeping strokes. Now this paint, it's kind of one of the darker colors in the Fusion range. And you'll see that it looks like from here, as you're watching the video, that it's quite good coverage, but you will be able to tell when I move around to the other side that it does, you can still see a little bit of the underneath pine in it, and which is normal for all paints. Most paints that I use, you'll need at least 2 coats on the very much lighter colors like white, and even some with really bright pigment like the reds and the light blues. You'll need 3 or 4 coats. But you'll see on this side a little bit more translucency, and so I will have to give it a second coat. But here's how I do the draws. I'm speeding this up a little bit too, but I just go around all of the edges first. Kind of gives me something to hold on to as well. And then once I've done all of the, at least the side edges anyway, then I'll go along and when you can see the angle that I've got the brush on, it also helps to stop the brush getting around to underneath that little lip of where the draw is. So you get that after practice and practice, it does get a little bit easier to get those, to not get it on the sides of the draw. So to finish it off, nice long strokes and making sure you don't leave drips across the edge of your project. So I'll start the brush just before one edge and then drag it all the way off the other edge and feather that end, and then I'll start again, same with the other way. Okay, so here we've started the second coat now. So this is just my speedy time-lapse version. You can see on the bottom there, and then I'll turn it around in a second. See that side? Now you can see that it definitely needs that second coat. And once you do have that second coat on, even though it's wet now, you can see that it's a lot more of a solid coverage. And then we're almost finished and ready to start our next fun part of this project, which I really loved doing. You can see that colour a little bit better now. So I'm taping off the edges, and I actually filmed this part during a live that I do with Essential Stencil on their Facebook page to use their stencils for this fun pop of fun, I call it. People say a pop of colour they've added to a piece. Well, I added a pop of fun. So we're using a stencil called Argyle. It's that Argyle pattern. And let me just give you some stenciling tips while I'm here, but I do have a lot of videos with regard to stenciling and how to do lots of stenciling tips on them. So any of my videos there on my YouTube channel, you'll be able to see my stenciling tips. But I'm just literally dipping the stencil brush into the pot of paint, offloading as much as I can on the cardboard, and then giving it a swirl. And that will, offloading as much as you can is the key to not getting bleed through and little fuzzy edges on your stencils. So, but again, I have got lots of tutorials on doing that. So here's a tip too when you're using a pattern. What I've done is I've placed that pattern in the center instead of like placing it to one side and then trying to match it up and do the other side, only because those diamonds may not line up as completely centered once you do it from left to right. So I put the pattern in the center and then I'm adding the diamonds each side. So as you can see on the very end there, just before the blue painter's tape on the left, there's just a peak of those last two diamonds on there. So I shifted it over 2 rows of diamonds to make sure I get those ends. And again, a bit of a swirly method to try and fill in those gaps and that little tip on the edge there. You'll see that in the finished look. And then as we shift it over, do the same on the other side. So instead of putting it right off to the edge, because that stencil will hang and droop over the edge and it'll be a lot harder to stencil. So I've just moved it along, put the tape down there where it was already that blue-green colour underneath. So you don't want to tape it over the wet red paint. And then I'm going to do some fun on the sides. This is an idea that you could do with or without it on the front of the drawers. You can always just, and sometimes I've done this, add a little bit of fun to the sides of your drawer sets. They're all plain on the front, or you can decorate the front, but I just love having that little pop of fun, as I said before, on the sides. Now, as I'm doing this, I can see some of that wood grain through, which I love. This is just really raw on the sides, so that's a little bit of fun fact there, but it creates a bit of a stain effect look on the sides. Now, this is the little thread that goes through all the diamonds in that Argyle pattern. So those little triangles on each corner help to line it up with the diamonds if you're using this in a full set. But as you can see, I'm only using that center portion, that center section, because my drawer is a rectangle and it doesn't fill the full square. So we're just taping that down. And for this one, I'm going to be using, and I forgot to mention, I was using Winchester as the red, and this is Fusion Mineral Paint Metallic in Antique Gold. Using one of Essential Stencils stencil brushes. And I'm an ambassador for Essential Stencil, and you can use my code IRestoreStuff and get 10% off any of the Essential Stencil products on their website, essentialstencil.com. So the little lines, they were kind of a challenge to fill those because the lines are so thin. You kind of have to work, instead of swirling motions, you're working across the line. So you're going with the length of the line, but in some of this it might look like I'm doing a bit of a swirling method, but that worked out just perfect. And you can't see it on the video, but it does have that sort of metallic shimmer about the thread that goes through. So it's a lovely little addition to that diamond pattern, a bit of a harlequin pattern, I guess. But Argyle is the name of the stencil set, if you're looking for that one, on essentialstencil.com. All finished, and that's how the final drawer will look. Now I'm going to add that again to the sides to just make sure it's all all the same as the front. And you can see there's a bit of a gap between the actual drawer front and where the pattern starts, and that's just simply because that's how the stencil is made, to have that gap around the edges. And I don't mind that on the drawer. It doesn't really make a difference to what I'm using it for. So there we go, we've got all the stenciling done now. I'll go over and do the rest of those drawers, but removing your tape very carefully just to be sure not to peel it. There's a before and after of putting the gold thread through to see the difference it makes, just having that extra thread there. Oh, to finish off the drawers I used Fusion's Antique Glaze, and so that'll just give it a bit of an antique look. I just wanted that. I've already done in this video, you can see I've done the inside of the drawers with the Antique Glaze, so now I'm showing you how I do the edge. So you just wipe it on and then wipe it off along the grain of the wood. So this was on raw pine, so I just wanted a little bit more of a stained look, antique look to the finish of the sides of the drawers and on the inside. So I did the Antique Glaze all over. And if you wanted to, you could actually seal that with a wipe-on poly, but it possibly is all right just to leave as is if you're doing it on raw wood. So there you can see the Antique Glaze, and then the difference where I haven't done yet, it's still got that light pine look, and this has just got that touch of antique looking. So that's light raw pine at the back there too. So here's the other side. You can see the difference where I've just done half of it there, adding a little bit more, wiping back with the grain. And then I added these little leather pulls that have kind of that burgundy tone to them, a cherry red pull, and there's the finished product. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the stenciled look. If you're going to try this, I'd love to know that too. And you can follow more of my furniture tutorials on either YouTube or on my blog irestorstuff.com, or follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, all of the places. I'm Sharon from I Restore Stuff. Thanks for watching.